Gentlemen, I'm with MyWorkDrive. I'm an account manager. Why don't we give it just a few minutes? We've got a fair amount of people on the call, but we're expecting about 15 or 20 more. So let's just give it a couple of minutes. Thanks for your patience. Okay, it's 10:01. If we could just wait a couple more minutes, let's say about 10:03, we'll let the people that are just logging in come in, and then we'll begin. Okay, my phone is showing 10:03, actually 10:02 something. So let's get going. By way of introduction, again, thank you everyone for joining. I'm very excited. My name is Rick Bantelman. I'm the account manager for MyWorkDrive, one of them, and happy to present the new features that are coming out in version 5. We reviewed the attendee list, and most people are current customers or very familiar with MyWorkDrive. So we're going to go right into the new features and benefits of and what we are addressing. And then if there's anyone new, you can get a general overview by going to our website. But pretty much this is going to be what's new in version 5. And attending with me is Dan Gordon, a co-founder of MyWorkDrive and our Chief Technical Officer.
Good morning, Rick. Hopefully it's beautiful weather down in San Diego today.
Yes, it is. It's always beautiful down here. Thank you. And Jackie Bruckman is our Chief Marketing Officer, and she will be taking questions that come during the presentation if people put in the chat window, and we'll address them later, and she'll introduce herself at that point. So let's just get running in here. I want to respect everybody's time, and I know you're all looking forward to PowerPoints before you see the demo. Just kidding there. So we will get going right away. MyWorkDrive, what it is. Here you've had a chance to look at that, and again, you know why MyWorkDrive, what it is. We're going to definitely show you the version 5 product demo, and Dan will be doing that. And very exciting, our DLP security features, not an acronym. Person data loss prevention. We like to call it data leak prevention, just to use the same 3 letters. And we'll do Q&A. So what's wrong with file share remote access? Again, you folks pretty much know that because you're customers or are very interested in the product, but just a review. Security, lack of governance, compliance control, malware, ransomware, all of that. Sync and share. I came from that environment, and funny story, I heard Dan at a presentation one time, and I said I have to work for this company because I know what's wrong with sync and share. So we came together, and I'm glad we did. It's expensive to migrate to sync to a third-party cloud software. Loss of data control. It can get out in the wild, and then you have to worry about MDM and things like that on mobile devices. Additional cost. IT admin, they have their own admin monitoring, so it requires almost a full-time admin for that. And the licensing costs are pretty hefty. VPN, remote desktop software, everyone I think knows it's not so much the cost of VPN, but it's the cost of supporting VPN that becomes a real issue. We have plenty of people that are having issues, or their clients or users are having trouble with VPN access, and they turn to us for help. MDM, again, that is always something that's it's expensive. That can be very expensive. The way with our solution, we can avoid the need for MDM, and ongoing firewall security issues, remote desktop, all of the kind of the baggage that goes along with that. MyWorkDrive mitigates all of that. Secure file remote access. What are we? We are cloud-like capabilities for accessing company files without VPN, syncing or migrating data. And we have better security and control using existing Active Directory permissions and two-factor authentication. You're going to see Duo, which is really cool, in a little bit. And again, authentication with data leak prevention. Really, really cool capabilities that we have now. Patented software adds private cloud functionality to existing file shares. Using our secure tunnel, the users get directly to our data. Using Active Directory and NTF permissions, we can make sure that the people have access, but can control what they can do with that. Sometimes they can't. You can say they can download, they can't download, they can be read-only, whatever. So we honor what's going on with all of those.
Right, and Rick, I point out that all the files always stay on the customer server, right? So everybody gets their own unique tunnel, and only time they even need to go through us at all is when they're doing Office 365 editing. And in fact, we now support Office Online Server if the customer wants to have their own online server right on-prem too. So then in that case, everything is, even the access goes through them in all cases.
There you go. And thank you, Dan. And then we have, as you would expect, the browser, the MapDrive client, the mobile client. We're actually going to talk about, the current features that are in version 5. Pretty exciting stuff that is also on the roadmap. Anytime I'm talking to people about that, I won't let the secret out yet on my favorite piece, but I will later on. No VPN, obviously, no syncing data migration, and no storing data in the public cloud. Your file shares, as Dan just said, they exist where they exist today. We leverage the access that you already allow, and we just provide it again through our secure tunnel. Network security, Duo, two-factor authentication. Dan will be showing that. That is where you must, in his case, he's going to have to verify who he is via his phone in order to be able to get in. Compliance, huge, right? HIPAA, everybody knows the importance of that. FIPS, GDPR, tons of business we're getting from Europe with the GDPR compliance regulations. No compromising file security, with my favorite expression, no data left behind. And again, that mitigates the need for MDM on mobile devices. We have a very unique capability within mobile devices through the browser to be able to edit files in Office 365 through the browser. So the file actually never needs to hit or get downloaded to there. Very, very unique capability that we bring. And then again, data leak prevention that we'll talk very much about with encrypted view.
Hey, Rick, I just want to point out Jackie just joined us, so she'll be able to chime in on some of these slides as well.
Great, Jackie.
Hi, guys.
Yourself. There you go.
Hi, Jackie Bruckman, Chief Marketing Officer with MyWorkDrive.
Thank you.
Glad to be here.
Glad you're there too. Okay, let's go. Office 365, direct editing of Office documents in Office 365 online. Real-time collaborative co-editing without moving files to the cloud. That's very important. So we honor the record, the section locking, so that there aren't collisions and things of that nature. And edit documents online directly from the mapped drive. Very, very neat. When I show the map drive, and I'm sure, again, you people have seen, it's a map drive. It does exactly what map drives do, which is very cool, which gets the learning curve. There is none. If people are used to map drives when they're in the office, that MapDrive experience is identical when they're remote. MyWorkDrive network overview. You people have probably all seen this. We have our clients. In the middle, we have our MyWorkDrive server, and we use your Windows shares, SMB NAS, and leverage your Active Directory to your existing file shares. Anything you want to say about that, Dan, other than it's pretty self-explanatory?
Well, yeah, I guess the one thing I would point out is that we exclusively use Active Directory. We get that question quite a bit. People go to log in and they're like, well, how do I log in to the admin panel? What do I? There is no separate database. Everything is leveraging Active Directory. That's why it's kind of a set it and forget it kind of setup. Once you set up the MyWorkDrive server, typically you're putting it next to wherever your file servers are. Then you point to the shares with it uses the existing NTFS permissions, and all you're really doing in MyWorkDrive is saying who gets to get at stuff remotely and what kind of features you're going to allow them to use, you know, whether they get to download or open documents in Office 365 or not. But from a security standpoint, everything is leveraging Active Directory underneath. So when a user gets enabled in a group, they're able to access it. If they get disabled or removed from a group, they're no longer able to access it. So it really cuts down on the administration side, like you had mentioned earlier. There's none of that dual administration like you get with other products where you're having to import users and manage licenses back and forth and all that kind of stuff.
There you go.
Yeah, and I just want to jump in from a client perspective, because that first graphic, just the simple task of opening, you know, your phone screen and clicking on the icon app for MyWorkDrive, and you're instantly, you know, checking out a file that maybe your CFO just sent you, you're catching a plane, you need to sign off on something quickly, it's secure. I mean, the ease of use, especially for mobile devices, from a client perspective, as one who's used it before, is just magnificent and efficient and easy, you know, and knowing that you're constantly connected in a way that is totally secure.
Perfect. Well, thanks, guys. That's helpful information. And Dan, every time you say set it and forget it, I think of the infomercial of the food dehydrator. So that's pretty fun. So version 5 security features. You will see all of this in the web file manager. We now have 60 file types. Before this release, you would get thumbnails, and you'd actually have to download and open up in the application associated with that file type. Now we have that right within the browser. No clipboard copying or printing. I always get, well, what if I take a picture of that? Well, Dan will show you how even if you do that, our DLP comes into play, and you can find out who is illegally sharing that information. Custom watermarks, and you know, confidential, you know, do not distribute, whatever you want on that. Extensive logging and stamping. You can find out on the document, and this kind of gets back to taking a picture. It'll have the user that opened that document. It'll have the custom watermark, the date, timestamp. So, you know, not likely people are going to distribute that with that kind of information on it. And then that goes along with data leak and theft prevention. Our MapDrive, we can block file extensions. No password savings, so we can make sure that you can allow it or disallow password saving, and open Office files without local office. Very, very, very neat, because some people may be working remotely. In fact, a lot will be. They may not have local office. Dan will also talk on the roadmap of the reverse of that, and I'll let him get into that later. And security, SAML, SSO, Okta, One Login, Centrify, Azure Active Directory. Pretty much we honor all of the security providers out there for single sign-on. And at this point, Dan, I'd like to hand it over to you because I've been babbling long enough, and you can show how all this works in action.
Okay, great. Let me go ahead and show my screen here.
I got it. I see it.
Okay, cool. So I'm on our demo server here, and I think let's just start with the web file managers, because kind of what we went through on the slides. So the first thing that I'm going to do is just kind of go through and show what the new viewer is. So for example here, I have a drawing that's an AutoCAD drawing. So now right within the viewer, users can actually view drawings, other types of files right online. And so they can also print from here, download, and even convert stuff to PDF, right, all within the browser. So we have 60 different file types that can be opened using the browser, and that's on our support site as well. So really excited about that. Before, users were able to download these files, but not be able to view them online. So that if they didn't have viewers, or if we wanted to lock things down for data leak prevention, they weren't able to do that. You can see for this one, I've not locked anything down, so I do have the ability to print or download and convert and even take screenshots and things like that. But when we get into a share that is locked down, I'm going to take actually this exact same share here on the server side. I specified that this share is locked down. So in this case, even Office documents have to be opened up within that browser. If I go here and take a look at one of these files, for example, you can see now that there's a watermark that's put across this document. And so if anyone were to try to print it, which you notice print has been removed, there's no download, there's no clipboard copying, I can't do that. And you can even see that I'm the one that opened this and what date and time that it was open. So even if I were to try to take a picture with my cell phone, it's going to be pretty clear to me that all this information is logged, and I don't want to be having this information leak outside of the company. So this really helps on the compliance side quite a bit. And all this is customizable. So this can be changed to whatever the company requirements are. And you can see, I'm going to go into the admin panel and just kind of show kind of how that works. So you'll see on the new admin panel section, instead of, like you mentioned earlier, Rick, instead of data loss prevention, we've kind of named it data leak prevention now, because we had a lot of folks who were like, well, I don't really need to make backups. And that's not what DLP means. It's data leak prevention. What we're trying to do is prevent data from exiting the company. And there's some various options here, but once you have an enterprise license and you enable that, by default, here's your text that you can put in terms of a watermark, and you can put the date stamp in there. If you don't want anyone editing or downloading documents across any shares and don't even want to specify that on the share level, you can globally set that. You can also globally allow folks to edit documents in Office Online. And one of the reasons that we have that as a separate option is because, of course, if you're editing a document in Office Online, there's less control that we have in terms of it won't be opening in this viewer, it's going to be opening up in Office Online. And so then the user could potentially copy things to the clipboard, even though if there's no save button, all the changes get saved back to the server. So they kind of have to do a little work to get to there, but it's less secure than if you just want people to only be able to view it. So I'll show kind of how one particular share is. So here is a share that is set up that I just went through. And you can see in this case, I'm not allowing download. I'm not even allowing users to edit in Office Online. So this is granular and can be set by user or by group. If I wanted to specify it by group, I could say, well, I want to allow them to go ahead and edit documents online, knowing that there's a little more security risk there, but I don't want them to be downloading anything. So the other types of documents can't be downloaded, and even in Office Online, all that sharing and downloading is removed as well. So pretty awesome stuff. I mean, it really makes it more productive whether or not it's used just for viewing or to be used, for locking stuff down. Let's just take a look at the map drive next. So the map drive, as Rick mentioned, there's some things that we can do there with blocking file extensions, So you can see on the admin panel here, there's some new options. We've got ability to disallow password saving. So companies that are subject to compliance concerns like GDPR want to have that ability. So the users that download and use the MapDrive client, of course, they will need to have at least version 5 or higher if they enable these extra new features. For compatibility, if those are not enabled, then the older version 4 clients will continue to work. But if you want to use these new versions of features, then you got to have the version 5.0 MapDrive client. So we can disallow, by default, password saving is allowed, and there's no restrictions on what the file types are. But in the case of what we're doing here for the demo, I'm going to have whitelist only, which is just some default documents. Basically, Office documents are the only, and maybe PDFs are the only ones allowed to be opened. Anything else will be blocked. And then for blacklist, that was another option, which is to block executables. You don't want users opening up databases, QuickBooks, things like that. You really want them to be using the portal for that or coming into the office for that, or restricting that kind of information. So that's all kind of granular in terms of being able to change that. So let's go and take a look here. I'm going to leave these settings the way they were. So here's the MapDrive client. And since, even though I had clicked remember me, it remembers who I am, but I still have to put in my password because company policy is that you're not allowed to save that. And the user is going to get a little bit more information in terms of the fact that we block some things. So in this case, because we've said that those things are not allowed, we're going to let them know that up front. We're also going to let them know up front that the administrator has prevented password saving, so that the way the user knows what's going on. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to notice here on the demo share is if I double click on an Office document, it's actually going to open up within the browser. So this is really a cool feature because we have a lot of customers who have certain subset of users that are E1 subscription only, which is Office Online only, or maybe students at universities, or even home users. So in this case, they could install the MapDrive client and still have that MapDrive type of experience. But when they're opening that document, they're opening it up within the browser, and they don't even need to have Office installed at all. So I can edit this document online like I normally would with an Office online subscription, but I'm not saving it back to my home PC. I don't have to have Office installed. You can see right here any changes I make are just being saved back. And when I say saved in my WorkDrive, I mean my WorkDrive server. So everything is saved back to the company's shares in that case. So that's a real great use case. We've got some customers that maybe have a bunch of computers out in a lab and they don't want to manage Office on there, or maybe they're even users aren't using them that often, and the users would balk, well, I don't want to use a browser for accessing files. And this way, they still get that same type of look and feel of being able to open a document and go through a MapDrive type of setting. And then from a support standpoint, you're not also now, for anyone working remotely, they can install the MapDrive and then set that as an option. When you run the setup for the MapDrive, there's an option and a checkbox to be able to specifically use the MapDrive to open Office extensions if you don't have Office installed. And we actually even prompt the user a second time, are you sure you really want to do this? Because we're basically saying, we're going to take over these extensions and we're going to open these in Office Online. And of course, if you reinstall MyWorkDrive client or uninstall it, it'll set it back to whatever the default document types were for those extensions. So we also have the ability to have that information specified in globally when pushing out MyWorkDrive using scripts as well. So The other thing that we talked about earlier was blocking. So in this case, I'm only allowing certain file type extensions. You can see if I start to try to click on a certain type as blocked, and then if I double click on it, I'll just get an access denied. File type blocked by policy, access is denied. So I can't put files in there. I can't open files that way. If I want to do exclusions or whitelist, it's flexible either way. So some pretty cool features. There's a couple other things that we slipped in here too, just to make it more usable for users. So now when you're actually when the drive is mapped, in the past, the user would have to know to unhide this icon because of course in Windows it would be hidden. Now when you double click on it, it's going to bring up a menu. And so if I click on it, even when it's already mapped, of course, then if I click on that, it'll now bring up the drive mapping, or if I double click it here, I can now go to settings. And notice we have a couple other options that we've added on here. Hide frequently used files and folders. So what we found is there's a feature within Windows 10 that will show frequently used files and folders. And when you're using a map drive like this remotely, you don't want every time you open File Explorer having it try to go out and touch the last 30 files that you open. So by default, we hide those frequently used files and folders. And this is scriptable if you do want to allow that to happen, but we found it works much faster that way. So when you open Explorer, it's not trying to go out there and touch every file you might have looked at. And of course, it'll still be there in the recent list in the apps that you have. So that's one of the features on there too. So it just makes it overall much easier for users to be able to do stuff. If I click here, there's also the advanced options. We have an option to show the map drive link in File Explorer. Well, what I typically do is I will add it to quick access. And so you'll normally see it there, but you can also add a menu item if you want and have the MyWorkDrive be on this PC and have it there as well. So that's also something that can be scripted and pushed out as well. So really try to make it very usable, user-friendly, easy to manage. And of course, it still works with Duo two-factor security on all of this as well. And then finally, one of the other things that we did was add SAML, single sign-on. So if I go here back to the browser, you'll see that I have Okta configured and I have a MyWorkDrive app. So if I click on that, you can see that I'm now logged in instantly. I'm already in the portal. So just by creating an app with an Okta as an example that we've put in here, you're able to go in and be able to open and see that launch with basically what they call single sign-on. You already are logged into Okta. We're going to trust your account, and now you're able to log on here. Now, in terms of configuring that, we currently already support, let's take a look here, ADFS, single sign-on. And of course, when we say single sign-on, we mean that they're already signed in and that you don't have to re-enter your username and password. If you're using Active Directory, of course, everything is integrated, so there's no additional set of usernames and passwords. But in this case, a lot of companies would put MyWorkDrive on a portal, let's say, on their either their company portal or within Office 365 and add it as an app there. And ADFS is something we've supported for quite a while. But in this case, we're now adding single sign-on for other vendors. And currently that option all exists within some configuration files. We'll be adding a menu item here, and we have some support documents on our website. On the SAML overview here. And there's some details on how to do that. And of course, you can work with support. We'll be happy to help you with that as well. We've got a couple of integration guides here, one on Okta and one on Azure AD. And in fact, we're very close to getting the Azure AD certification in Microsoft. So we'll just show up natively within Azure as one of the apps that you can add. So that'll even make it easier to be able to set that up And typically the way you would be doing that would be you would have Active Directory on-prem, you'd be syncing Active Directory with Active AD Sync in Azure AD, and then when the user logs in, they're logging in with their email address, which is the same address that you've configured for them in Active Directory, and voila, they're instantly in without any additional setup or prompting for username and password. Did I miss anything, Rick?
No, I was going to mention one thing, and then you covered it. So no, I think you pretty did it. In fact, I just learned something on the MapDrive client. Some of those features you showed by right-clicking, I didn't realize was there. So I learned something as well. So yeah, very good. No, I think you covered it pretty well.
Okay, and I'm just going to, while I'm in this screen, we do have some features that are coming in 5.1, and I will go ahead and show what's happening there. So in the future, we're adding the ability to edit this document in Office. So if I say edit document, now we're adding the ability to be able to open that in local Office right from the browser. And what will happen is the user will get prompted to log in with username and password, and then once they log in, they can have the option of saving that password. If you allow it, there'll be an option on the back end to completely enable or disable this feature, of course, as well as to allow whether you want to allow the user to save their password, and that would just be between sessions. So if you enter it once within a session, if you edit any more documents, then you'll be able to continue to do that without being prompted. If the administrator allows you to check this box, then it'll just open up on that machine indefinitely. So now you can see there's that little circle here. Any changes that I make are just allowed right back to the server. So for those companies that want to be able to completely lock down everything to the browser, don't want to support a MapDrive client, they don't want to support a mobile client, and they want to just lock everything down, but still give users the ability to edit large files, something like Excel. I think there's a 5 meg minimum or maximum in Office 365. They can do that. Or if you don't want to have this feature at all, it can be completely disabled. We used to have something like this in the past. Using session URLs, and we were able to update our software and be able to support this in a secure way with this additional extra prompt for a login that we're putting in here. But it really gives people a great way to be able to completely use and access their files.
Yeah, just I'd like to add to that, Dan. It's funny how things go. What was it? In a 2-week period, we had 3 of the companies we were talking to that said, hey, we really need this. We don't want the MapDrive client. We want web access only. We don't have Office 365. We want to edit locally. And I was amazed. It was like 2 weeks, and we had the prototype of this working. So I think this is going to be a big hit. This is one of my favorite enhancements.
Cool. I'm going to go ahead and shift it back to you, Rick, and then you can continue on the slides.
You got it. All righty, I think you just pretty much went through all of this, and we'll just kind of wrap it up. So, the security features we talked, it was just sort of a wrap up. Web client data leak prevention. Dan did a good job of showing that. The differences you can do now in the MapDrive with file extensions, all the different capabilities of that. And the admin panel, of which he alluded to, of the different lockdown settings. And the big power of that is we've gotten very granular rather than general. These are the big features in version 5. And then we talk about, okay, what is the business value of all of these? Improved security and accessibility. The Duo 2-factor authentication. It's interesting. I'm now getting people can set appointments on my calendar, and I'm getting appointments set by people that are currently using Duo because we now support that. So it's a nice lead-in for that. single sign-on, not only ADFS, we can do Okta, one login, and now that we support SAML, we can do some of the other ones as well, or any of them. Online editing in Office 365. Certainly reduce the total cost of ownership by the way we are implemented. Secure, compliant access. If you want, we have customers that want web client only, because that would be very, very secure and no files left behind on a mobile device. So we can pretty much meet all the needs of how secure and compliant things need to be. And immediate return on investment, absolutely. You know, if you look at the cost of VPNs, you look at the cost of doing things different ways, we're a very, very economical solution, but yet still robust at the same time.
Yeah, and I just want to emphasize that piece too, because, you know, we've had a lot of folks talk to us, especially when we were at the RSA show, in the government sector and healthcare, financial, and education, that governance compliance is so key. And the visual aid there of the guy sitting on the beach and able to, you know, without VPN, but duo authentication and get into, you know, proprietary files that are kept on-prem is just so key to many stakeholders. So I just want to emphasize that point again.
Right. In fact, I not too long ago, in fact, earlier this morning, was working with a MSP partner that a lot of their customers were using RDP to get at their network file shares, and they say that's just not secure enough. We don't like it. It's not reliable. One of the reasons we do it is you know, ours is our secure tunnel, no clients, no RDP, no VPN, all of that. And then just kind of to hit this, edit documents locally through the browser. Dan just showed that. That's a great feature. And these are kind of what's coming. iOS file sharing. These are the roadmap features, actually. And SSO partnerships in the admin portal. Again, the one login, Okta, all of these. So these are roadmap features. Nice thing about roadmaps, it's not 6 months out, a year out. We're pretty reactive. Like I mentioned, it was about 2 weeks' time to turn around and edit documents locally for me to get a prototype in my hands. So we're pretty reactive. If people have features that make business sense, we can do it. And we've also done mapped drive speed improvements. We're getting a good reaction on how fast those files are being presented. And that takes us to questions about MyWorkDrive. And you can contact us at sales@MyWorkDrive and find us on the web. And we've got pricing on there. We have everything. And if you're a partner or want to be a partner, you can sign up and you can see partner pricing and all of that.
And questions are allowed in the interface as well. We can take a few questions right now, actually.
Absolutely. So if you want to go into that chat window, we'll take them as they come.
I see one that came in just real quick, Rick. It's they say they saw the press release about Duo. What other certifications does MyWorkDrive have, or other partnerships we're working on?
So you want to handle that, Dan?
Yeah, we actually just got FIPS certified for our encryption. So we increased our encryption level and went through a government process to be FIPS certified. That's on our website and it's linked to the national NC website. And we're continuing to work on furthering that as well. We've got a lot of these other ones that are also applied in there as well. A lot of times people will say, are you HIPAA certified? Well, there is no actual certifications. It's more about processes. So the ones that we're doing there are continuing. And then we're going to be adding FINRA as well.
There you go. Yeah, and I was just going to say, you know, what is it, GDPR and HIPAA, as you say, you know, we are compliant to the current requirements for that. There is no actual certification, but we are certainly compliant. So thank you with that.
And then another one just came in. How can we lock things down in just the browser?
Yeah, I can take that one. So within the settings on the admin panel, you can disable the map drive, you can disable the mobile client, and then that locks everything down to the browser only. And then if you want to take it a step further, you would go to enterprise settings and enable data loss prevention like I showed in the demo. And then in that case, you can then lock them down, not only to within just the browser, but then they can only view within that encrypted view that I showed, so that they can't even download no matter who they are.
Right. I was just going to say that you can prevent downloads and sharing and all of that. Yes.
Right. And I see a question here kind of in that vein of how we would apply that watermark only for external users. And so, since we're using Active Directory, when we think about external users, we would be talking about, I assume, some users that are added to a separate OU in Active Directory, and maybe you just want to give them access to a particular set of files. And so what you would do would be to create a separate Active Directory group. You put them in that group, then you create a share in MyWorkDrive pointing to that network share that you want to make available to them, and you enable the data loss prevention, and then you only enable it for that one share only, right? Just like we showed in the demo, you would leave all the other ones alone and allow them to download or edit in Office 365, but for that particular share that you create, that's for that group only. Then they would only be able to see that one share, and then when they go to look at the files, they'd only be able to view them within the encrypted viewer that we showed.
Perfect. Any other questions come in?
I have this one all the time from people. This didn't necessarily come up, but I want to maybe just have us detail this just a tiny bit more. Is how do you manage users? A lot of folks have remote workers, and I know we went through everything, how it functionally works, but how about management, mobile device management, use device management? How easy is it, basically? Because I get that a lot.
Well, with mobile device management, we don't need to deal with mobile device management because everything stays on the server. So that really reduces the need for that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's inherent in the way we do things. Again, one of the very cool things we do to not need mobile device management is I think I mentioned it earlier, on a tablet device, we can, through the browser, edit a document in Office Online or Office 365 in the cloud, and it never ever hits that document, and that document never hits in that scenario or is left behind on that. So you get it, you edit it, you save it back, and you leave, and you take the train home, and you leave your device on the seat. That file isn't there. So that's what MDM is supposed to do, is to lock it down, that if that file happens to be there, but it's not there in the scenario I'm talking about. So you can certainly mitigate all of that.
Okay, I do see a couple other questions that came in. I see that we've had this in the past too, and we actually are working on this now, is ability to create shortcuts within large nested directories. And so what we're looking at there, of course, we already support network shortcuts. So if you create a network shortcut that goes to a network path, we'll actually resolve that. So that was added a couple of versions back already, and of course it has to point to a network path, but that will show up as a folder for users to be able to get to that. So that's one option. But in order for them to basically have a favorite to be able to more quickly get back to a directory, we are adding that feature. Essentially, that one's a little bit harder to do because it's per user. And so we basically have to keep a tiny file on your MyWorkDrive server in order to keep track of the various favorites for each group. And that's something we're working on in version 5.1 as well. So that is being looked at right now. So that should be out fairly soon. It's going to take it's not as easy as it sounds, but we do have a path, I think, in terms of being able to accomplish that. And I also see another one here. The general availability of this, We're looking, actually it's going really well. We've worked with a number of customers to install it on their server. We've been updating it. It's actually been a lot better than we thought because of some major changes in there. So we're probably looking in the next couple of weeks of making it, calling it generally available and pulling it out of the preview release that it is in now. It's already available for download right now, of course, along with the 4.2 version. And that's just by going into the login and logging into the portal and then clicking on download within the portal. I do see a question here related to the 5 meg limit. Is there any way to work around that in Office Online? That's a Microsoft setting. There's no way to get around that. You have to use local Office like we showed that's coming up in 5.1 version. So within 5.1, we'll be releasing that ability to be able to use local Office. And you can do that. Of course, you can do that now with the map drive too. So you can already do that now. Microsoft is the one controlling the 5 meg. For whatever reason, they have the 5 meg limit on Excel, but they don't have those limits. They're quite high in Word or PowerPoint. And we've seen rumors of them in the various boards lifting that limit, but we have no idea what that time frame might be.
I just want to take a moment quickly, Dan and Rick, and remind folks who are in the webinar as well that MyWorkDrive will be at the Gartner Symposium IT Expo in Orlando between October 14th and 18th. If anybody's on the East Coast or is going or knows folks that are going, we will be exhibiting there. Just want to put that out there.
Great.
Great. Yes, we're really looking forward to that. That's going to be huge for us to be able to present in front of C-level folks and driving MyWorkDrive forward for them as a really great solution. I do see a question related to that. Actually, are we going to be at Ignite? No, we're not going to be at Ignite. We will be at the Gartner Symposium in Orlando. They're expecting 9,000 C-level folks to be there, and we will have a presence there, and we will be presenting there.
We're featured in the emerging technology section.
Yeah. It looks like one last technical question came in, is ability to be able to do disaster recovery with MyWorkDrive. And yeah, so this comes up with our larger customers. Typically, when you're a larger customer of over 100 or 200 users, we will give you an additional ability to install MyWorkDrive on a second server, and in some cases maybe even a third, depending on how large the customers, if they want to have clustering and automatic failover. We've got actually a support article on our website around that, but we do typically negotiate and set that up with the customer for any larger customers. They will have ability to have a standby server with MyWorkDrive. There isn't really a whole lot of settings to manage between the two, because really you're only looking at a config file, a couple of config files between the two. So that's one of the nice things about MyWorkDrive, is there is nothing actually stored on the MyWorkDrive server. There's just some configuration settings, and those just have to be duplicated on each side. And that can be done manually, or we can assist you in copying and show you how to do that within the config files themselves. So we definitely have customers doing that in a load balance way, or they just have a standby server ready to go as well. Or, for example, if you want to be able to take version 5 and start playing with it right now, and you're worried about your license, just let us know and we'll let you install that license on a second server, so you can kind of fully vet it first before you cut it over to, make it live.
Okay, I think if that's all the questions, I think we can give people the rest of their day back. And I'd like to thank everybody for joining. Hopefully you're as excited about this new release as we are. And as Dan alluded to, a couple weeks, this will be ready, and probably not too long after that, our roadmap stuff will be announced. So again, thank you very much. Hope your questions have been answered, and always you can get to me, or and I can get the appropriate information back at sales@myworkdrive.com. Any questions you may not think of right now that you'd like answered, we'll get back to you at quickly. And again, thank you for coming. Enjoy the rest of your day, and hope to hear from you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.